In some cases, I guess there's a perception that IoT is driven by consumer electronics and the consumer industry. It's much more than consumer electronics. It's instrumentation, it's sensing, it's tracking, device-to-device communication. There's numerous industries that are embracing this technology and driving operational efficiencies through their business. When it comes to traditional industries embracing IoT, there's often a little bit of a hurdle to get into the technology. What we see time and time again is that these business cases are huge. The opportunities are huge. We're talking millions and millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars worth of shrinkage or operational efficiencies that can be solved through the application of industrial technology or industrial IoT or sensors or tracking or just getting eyes on an asset, getting eyes on some temperature, getting eyes on some humidity, whatever it might be, and understanding the state of assets out there in the wild at scale has the opportunity to significantly solve a lot of problems. The technology is hitting a point where it's making sort of these things feasible from a size, cost, battery life, reliability perspective. You know, we can start to solve some of these problems that we couldn't do before. In our line of work here, working with big companies to solve problems at scale, the typical process is starting small. There's always a business case that needs to be validated. There's always a series of proof of concepts that need to be run in a really lean and efficient way to validate the assumptions of that business case and to ensure that it's rock solid so that executives can sign off on significant investment knowing that the payback is actually going to be there. One of the beauties of IoT is that when you have the data in your hands, you often learn things that you don't expect. So you might be seeking to solve that problem and you solve it, but in doing so you get eyes on 3 or 4 other things and you get to solve problems that you didn't even know existed because you now have the data. The sorts of problems that can be solved or the sorts of things that we see coming through the door often relate to supply chain efficiency, supply chain quality, being able to get eyes on all metrics of quality through a supply chain, understanding the temperature and humidity of critical goods going through a cold supply chain, the impact, the luminosity and light that it's exposed to, understanding what sort of elements products could have been exposed to that could impact the shrinkage of a large amount of product. There are an enormous amount of companies out there that are writing off 10% of their fleet of assets simply because they're lost and having to replenishing them each year. That's a line on a P&L that can be just solved by being able to instrument and track your assets. And we see that across countless industries. One of the projects that we've been involved in is monitoring the state of health of the harbour bridge. There's a maintenance routine that goes onto the bridge in terms of tightening up the nuts, tightening up the screws, painting the bridge. There's a lot of things that happen to that structure over time. We, in collaboration with CSIRO, deployed a whole series of continuous accelerometer logging of the bridge. If you travel under it and look up at night, you'll see a whole series of flashing red lights. They're sensors that are continuously monitoring the vibration of the bridge and feeding that data back to data scientists at CSIRO that are basically analysing it for predictive maintenance indicators to put into a decision matrix of the state of health of that asset. We're even deploying tracking devices on koalas. It was commissioned by TMR, who are putting a railway through a nature corridor in sort of north of Brisbane area in critical koala habitat. And Endeavour Veterinary through John Hanger were contracted to do a long-term study of the health of the population of koalas in that area by standing up networks within the forest and having koala tracking tags and health monitoring of them. We actually solved 2 problems. One, we ensured the ongoing health of the population through this infrastructure development, but the side effect was that by monitoring these koalas in this way, John was able to identify that there was another systemic problem within that population, and it was wild dogs. It's an example of an unintended insight. The TMR railway program didn't instrument koalas and monitor their health to solve the wild dog problem, but it did. And it's just an example of how getting insights as to what is happening, being able to monitor things through wirelessly connected devices, low power sensors, can solve problems that you didn't even know existed.